Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, I have an article detailing some very weird events with the mind. Both possible entities that parasitize the mind and the brain might make, light. Let's get into these articles first with this article, Parasites of Consciousness, an alternative theory of why there is a bad mood. Let's hear about how maybe there are these entities that feed on our good emotions, leaving us nothing but negative ones. So let's get into it now. Does it happen to you that you accidentally start breaking objects, hitting corners, get hurt in a rush, or are you in a bad mood for no reason at all? There is an assumption that this is caused by the actions of parasites of consciousness. Of course, parasites is only the word that best describes the situation. You can call it whatever you like. To do this, they find some traumatic moment in a person's memory, then they cause the victim to feel helpless, desperate, and worthless. A person begins to look for excuses for them and finds evidence in memory. It turns out a vicious circle. Emotions were launched from the outside, and then the person winds himself up. Parasites can take control of the body for a fraction of a second and injure it, causing appropriate emotions, or lead to suicide. Thoughts of suicide are a sure sign of their attack. Parasites of consciousness have been discovered by many researchers. Books have been written on the subject, and one of them is Psychic Self-Defense by Robert the Bruce. Bruce reports that our minds are subject to influences from many unseen spiritual sources. So, folks, these entities are somehow spiritual in nature. Are they demons, or are they just some sort of ghosts? Let's read on and find out. It is clear that the recognition of the existence of dark spiritual entities is a significant difficulty for many. There are two ways here. One is to consider them as some kind of dense clouds of negative energy. The second as visible manifestations of one's own subconsciousness or the subconsciousness of other people, or else as independently existing sensible thought forms. They can make us unhappy, irritable, confused, sick, unstable, even crazy. Your understanding of spirits depends solely on your life experience, your beliefs, and your willingness to acknowledge their existence. However, no matter who or what they are, if they exist at all, they must be taken into account. Colin Wilson writes the following in his book, Parasites of the Mind. The uninitiated ask me from time to time if I really see parasites and believe that they have any particular form. To this, I answer no. To understand the sensations I'm talking about, imagine this picture. You are hot. You are tired. Everything in the world is somehow going wrong. As soon as you start to cross the street, a bus rushes past you, almost crushing your leg. The whole world seems hostile to you. The usual sense of security has disappeared. Everything seems frighteningly fragile and unreliable. This is how a person who has been attacked by parasites feel. I used to take all of this for an ordinary bout of pessimism and bad mood, and immediately found some reason for concern to justify them. We live in a world where many of our experiences cannot be seen with the physical eyes. Most of the time, the veil of the third dimension shrouds us from an awareness of seeing and sensing other aspects of our lives. So the next time you notice the negative thoughts appear in your head, according to these researchers, these thoughts are not yours at all. In the following articles, we will teach you how to deal with these parasites. So, folks, what do you make of these spiritual entities? Are they somehow ghosts, demons, maybe some sort of interdimensional interlopers? But as the article says, he thinks, at least they're trying to specify, they might be some sort of thought forms. So literally, maybe they're literally negative emotions given somehow some form of life by people who believe or basically experience these emotions. Or it could be all of these things, folks, or a mix of them. In fact, I could believe that interdimensional interlopers could come from another dimension and feed on us like this as well. Or maybe alien entities or some other form of life we just don't know anything about, folks. Or demons or jinn or other spiritual beings. Unfortunately, we just don't know for sure, and maybe we never will. But that's the way things have always been, folks. But maybe one day that will change. Either way, folks, let's move on to the next article. It's another very interesting one. Brain emits light through skull according to a new study. As you can see, folks, the article we're about to read is another one dealing with the mind and maybe how the brain functions. This time, though, that maybe the brain actually emits light is quite a doozy. So let's get into it now. Scientists have discovered that the human brain emits weak light signals that can be registered regardless of external lighting. Scientists have found out how exactly these signals are related to mental state and whether they can be used to monitor brain activity. The results of the study are published in the journal iScience. All living tissues emit very weak photon radiation during metabolism. This light is not like bioluminescence, where light is emitted as a result of chemical reactions. In the case of ultra-weak photon radiation, light is produced when molecules transition from an excited state to a calmer state, and its intensity is extremely low, about 1,000,000 times weaker than the light visible to the eye. The brain emits more of this radiation than other organs, which is due to its high energy consumption and the presence of molecules that can absorb and emit light. A team of researchers from Algoma University, Tufts University, and Wilfrid Laurier University explored the possibility of using these weak light signals to monitor brain activity. Unlike existing methods such as MRI or infrared spectroscopy measuring ultra-weak photon emissions, UPE does not require exposure to the brain. That is indeed very interesting, folks, and I mean that. I did not know about this phenomena before, folks, that the brain emits very weak light. Do you suppose that humans can see this light occasionally? Because I know that when people are in space, that they can see some forms of light, basically when they close their eyes occasionally. So, maybe there's a chance? At least that's what I've heard, folks, that people in outer space can occasionally see some form of light when they close their eyes when these astronauts are in outer space. But either way, folks, very interesting. But let's move on to the next part of the article now. The experiment involved 20 healthy adults in a dark room. Photomultipliers were used to record light signals in the occipital and temporal regions of the head, and the electrical activity of the brain was measured using electroencephalography, EEG. The participants performed simple tasks. They sat with their eyes open and closed and listened to sound signals. The results showed that the light emitted by the brain differed from the background in its variability and frequency composition. The signals had a characteristic slow oscillations with a frequency of less than 1 Hz, especially noticeable in the occipital region. During a change in state, for example, when closing the eyes, the UPE indicators stabilized and changed, indicating a connection with internal brain processes. However, the direction of changes varied among participants. When photon radiation was compared with electrical rhythms of the brain, a weak correlation was found. Alpha rhythms associated with a relaxed state and intensified with closed eyes showed a connection with UPE in the occipital region, but only in this state. Similar connections were found in the temporal region during sound stimulation, but they were insignificant. The authors of the study note that the work has some limitations: a small sample size, a limited number of sensors, and a wide range of wavelengths required make it difficult to conduct a more precise analysis. To improve the results, it is necessary to increase the number of sensors and use more specialized filters. This will help to better localize the radiation sources and understand which brain cells are involved in the process. There are also plans to study how these light signals manifest in other tissues of the body and how they are affected by age, gender, and health status. Machine learning capabilities and new imaging techniques may help decipher UPE patterns and use them to diagnose and monitor brain diseases. The researchers believe that photon encephalography, based on measuring ultra-weak photon radiation, could become a new non-invasive tool for studying the brain with high temporal resolution. It will allow tracking metabolic processes associated with oxidative stress and potentially find application in clinical practice. Very interesting, folks. So, by studying these lights in people's brains, maybe they can be used to basically give diagnosis for various mental diseases and maybe even other applications in some other way. This new science could basically give, relief to many people who are suffering from various diseases all around the world, folks. But what about all we've learned about today, folks? Apparently, the brain can make light, and that's very interesting, folks, and basically shows how emotions and other things can basically be more easily, deciphered by the various machines that doctors use. Now, folks, we read earlier that basically people, think and theorize that there are somehow these, mental parasites that basically suck off the energy from people. I was just thinking, folks, that perhaps these lights in people's brains and other brain processes could show evidence of them as well. Either way, that's just an idea. But, folks, we're at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics They're Bad For You. You can use a link down below or in the descriptions to go subscribe to my channel. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure to hit the part of the bell that will give you all future notifications, and please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.